And tourism is not the only sector of the Cuban economy that may soon see big changes. The wider business community, from banking to agriculture, is also seeking new opportunities on Cuban shores. CCTV's Sean Caleb spoke with U.S.-Cuba trade expert Gary Hufbauer, and he asked what will happen when Cuba opens up to the U.S. business community.
I would say in the very short term, Raul and Fidel, they won. In the longer term, if we take a longer term as being a year, 2 years, the U.S. won. Because in my view, opening even a little bit to outside influence, that means U.S. influence, is going to erode the kind of very state-controlled economy. I mean, it is highly state-controlled. It's going to raise questions about the extent of corruption in the country and, about political freedoms. And it will be harder to have the sort of monolithic, and it truly is a monolithic one-party, secret police and all that state in the future. But in the short term, I know the critics say that, Obama gave it all. And what did Raul Castro give? Well, he gave our one spy and Alan Gross. And what else? Well, not much else.
Picking up on that, everybody's pointing to the fact that Cuba has a lot to gain with their economy. What is the U.S.? What are U.S. companies? Does Pepsi, Coca-Cola, do they all want to get in there?
Yes, there are. Let me start off by saying that it'll be a while before they can get in there the way they want, because it's not only that the U.S. has to lift the sanctions, which does require, in my view, congressional action, which is not going to happen right away, but also Cuba has to liberalize. But we think that trade could be about $6 billion each way. That is, the U.S. selling $6 billion of goods and services to Cuba, and Cuba selling about $6 billion to the U.S. with full normalization. And it's now just about zero. So, that's a pretty big change. Now, $6 billion is not a huge number for the overall U.S. economy, but for certain companies, it is going to be big stuff. What about financial services? I mean, the financial system in Cuba is, pretty primitive, but that means that there are opportunities for banks, particularly banks that are based in or have a presence in Miami, and it'd be very easy for them to move into Havana. So that, credit cards for Cubans, that'll be new stuff, debit cards, new stuff. So there's a whole kind of financial infrastructure.
Being there so many times and walking down the street, I sometimes think of what people in Brooklyn in the 50s must have been like. Literally, they sit on stoops, listen to music, everything's very laid back. Are Cubans going to be ready for this, firstly? And secondly, when we talked about all these things, McDonald's, financial services, the soft drink industry, do Cubans have the money to even enjoy this?
No, they don't. And what's going to have to happen is they're going to need bridge finance. Okay, to get bridge finance, there has to be confidence on the part of, financial institutions, so Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, the usual, to make loans. Well, that means that they have to have confidence that the Cuban government is, going to honor the loans, and they'll be put to good use, not corruption. And the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund put some money in to jumpstart this really moribund economy. Once they start selling stuff to the U.S. in big volume, they'll have money both ways, and so it will pay for itself. And there's a lot that they can sell with reorganizing the economy dramatically.
To give the outside world, people outside the U.S., a feel for what southern Florida is like. Right. A lot of elderly Cubans who are now Cuban Americans who came, they really dislike Fidel Castro beyond words. I mean, they believe, their families have, suffered at his hands. Right. That has changed. As these people have gotten older, their children are growing up. They're much more pragmatic. Right. Explain to people how you believe that opened up a lot of roads to allow this to happen.
Now, the younger people, they probably see some opportunity in this. First of all, some of the younger Cubans can probably see themselves as doing business in Cuba. And there are all sorts of opportunities to do business if you have some kind of entrepreneurial and business flair and you speak the language, you have some maybe relatives still in Cuba and so forth. Further, if you're a young person, let's say somebody under 30, do you really expect to get that home back in Havana or Santiago? No, you don't. Maybe the older people thought, they're going to get it back. They're not going to get it back. So they've written it off, let's say mentally written it off. They're not going to get any big compensation, maybe a little token, but it won't be a big thing in their life. So, kind of why not look to the reality? And also, I mean, the Castro brothers are now, if you just look at the mortality tables, they're not going to be with us very long. And there will be a new generation of leaders there. So, new possibilities.
And that